Welcome back to our channel about coaching, and today I've got an interesting angle for you that relates back to ancient literature and relates back to writing mythology, and at the same time is incredibly handy when you want to observe your own journey through challenges and changes, because you can identify, along with what we call the hero's journey, where you are standing right now and what your next step is, your next step up. So bear with me, and I'll introduce you to a beautiful concept by a writer called Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was a researcher who was very fascinated by mythology and by ancient stories of heroes' tales. And he studied along with that also the writings of Sigmund Freud, particularly his Oedipus complex. He studied Carl Jung, who has done extensive work around archetypes and around the collective unconscious, and another fellow called Arnold van Gennep, who did research on different rites of passage through the ages and through different cultures. And in looking at all these different concepts and looking at ancient writings from the Iliad and the Odyssey through to the Mahabharata in India, through the tales of Jesus and the Buddha, etc., Joseph Campbell was able to identify the standard steps that every hero takes on their journey, that pretty much rounds off his experience through a journey of separation from what was, through to initiation into something new, through to the return into the old society, but with new resources. And the resource part is what is so interesting when it comes to coaching, because really when we are moving through our challenges, what happens on our life journey is that if we are doing it in a resourceful, healthy way, we are gaining tools, we are gaining experience, we're gaining resources that once we have moved through the challenge, we are often an upgraded version of ourselves, and we can serve and give and love in a more mature and better way. So let's have a look at what Joseph Campbell has to say about the journey of the hero. And you will find, by the way, in listening to those different stages, that pretty much all really good, successful stories, a lot of the big Hollywood movies, are actually employing exactly those steps in order to create and construct their films and their movies. So let's have a look where it starts. The first setting, you will always find the hero in their ordinary world. They're going about their normal day-to-day life, happily plodding along, maybe a little bit bored, maybe a little bit frustrated, maybe with dreams of something bigger and better to come, but generally quite happily plodding away. So no matter which story you're looking at, you will always find that hero. At some point, the hero will experience the call to adventure. So if you, for example, looking at the hobbits in Middle-earth, right? Bilbo Beutlin is, or Baggins, I think in German it's Beutlin, in English it's Bilbo Baggins, is happily plodding away in Hobbiton, and then one day Gandalf, the magician, comes along and he calls him to adventure. And what does Bilbo do? He is not impressed at all. The next step is the refusal of the call. He doesn't want anything to do with dwarves and mysteries and fire-spitting dragons and anything. He just wants to stay in his own little comfortable world. If you, for example, look at another famous story, The Matrix, Neo is having a similar experience. He is working in, I think, some sort of office call center setting in his ordinary world, gets a call with an offer, hangs up and refuses. He doesn't want to hear about it. But then, very soon thereafter, each of those heroes and many, many more meet their mentor. So there comes along an inspiring person, a person who has seen things that they haven't seen, have heard things they haven't heard, and do seem to hold some magical power or some fascination that awaken the desire in the hero to find out more and to learn more. The next thing then is committing to the journey, meaning crossing the threshold between the old ordinary world and that magical land of adventure, that new world, the part where the challenge happens and where the step up has to happen. And this will often be represented either by physically leaving a world, like leaving Hobbiton in the case of Bilbo, or for Neo, you probably all remember that famous scene where there's the red pill and the blue pill, and he has to decide which one he wants to take. Do you want the pill that is going to magically allow you to forget that we ever had a conversation and just go back to your old life and not remember a thing? Or do you want the other pill that will take you on the adventure of a lifetime, but you will have to give up the world as you have known it? It's a difficult decision. And if you've ever been in a position like this, for example, leaving a job to start a new business, leaving a relationship that you have grown accustomed to, but that's not really fulfilling anymore, or leaving in any other world your old accustomed setting, it's quite a big decision to make and not something that comes easy. However, in our hero's story, obviously the hero will always step up and decide to go on the adventure. So cross the threshold into that new, exciting and adventurous life. The next part is then the test. Allies, enemies, and figuring out who is with me, who is against me, what powers do I have, what maybe weapons do I have, learning to fight, learning the rules of the game in the new setting, and experiencing ourselves as the person who is able to fight, developing our abilities. So again, if, for example, you're starting a new business, there's usually a huge step up involved with learning all the ins and outs of running a business. If you're leaving a job, everybody was being told more or less what to do by someone. Suddenly there's no one there anymore who tells you what you should be doing. Same thing entering new relationships, or worse, entering the dating market. There's a lot to figure out. Who is with you, who is not quite your type, etc. So there's lots of lessons in a very short span of time and lots of little step-ups to be made. From there, as you have figured out who is with you, who is there to back you, who are your friends and your supporters, and what are the skills that you have within, the next step is the approach. In every hero's story, there is some big scary thing, whether it's a dragon, whether it's some sort of ordeal they have to go through. But before that, already knowing that there's something bigger coming, something more intense that they have to survive or go through, there is the phase of the approach where the tension is building, there's probably fear, and the hero has to learn to hold that fear within, live with it, acknowledge it, and harness it into strength rather than running away and hiding in the sand. Some more detailed versions of the hero's journey actually have phases included as well, where the hero will turn back and hide and then has to be coaxed out of their hiding to come back and come to the party. But for this purpose here, this is called the phase of approach. And there might be conversations around feeling not good enough, feeling not worthy, feeling like I can't do it, and additional support being pulled there. Anyway, at some point, our hero will come to the actual ordeal and will have to fight the fight of their lives, whether that is actually slaying the mythological dragon, whether it's fighting the evil Mr. Smith in the Matrix, or any of those kind of journeys. There's always an element of death and rebirth. And interestingly enough, how this relates to coaching, it doesn't always have to be a physical death. It can be the death to your old identity. It can be the death to your ego as you have known it. Letting fall away an old identity, something that you are no longer, in facing your biggest challenge and your biggest fears, which is the toughest part of the journey and yet the most rewarding one, because we already know that on the other side lies a lot of good things. So hopefully, if you are in a situation where you are approaching your biggest fears, you will be able to push through and be your own hero in your own journey and let the old fall away to make room for the new to come into your life. So death and rebirth. If you are in a stage like this right now in your life, ask yourself, What are the elements that no longer suit you in your life? What it is that you need to, metaphorically die to? And what are elements, what are resources, what are gifts that you want to take from this journey? Our hero does the same thing. As he has slayed the dragon, he will then collect the reward. We can often see that in the form of seizing the sword, seizing some other treasure, seizing some gift. There will always be something that the hero is being rewarded with in having slayed that dragon and having overcome his deepest fear. So this is something very useful that you can do for yourself in moving through those massive challenges in your life. What are the gifts that you could choose to get, that you could choose to see, that you could observe in the situation and integrate and take with you? And as you are becoming more aware of them, then be able to share with the world. Because this is exactly what our hero does. He will then go on the road back, take a journey back to the old world, and eventually at some point cross the threshold again, away from the magical world into the old and ordinary world. Now, what is interesting here is that he comes bearing gifts. He has usually like an additional source of wisdom. He has maybe an additional power, has maybe learned something worthwhile sharing with the world. And yet there's an interesting challenge that can easily get overlooked, because once you've been through so much, whether it's like traveling the world, seeing different places, having overcome massive challenge, going back into your happy-go-lucky, easy suburban life, into the old life that you used to know, can be a challenge in and of itself. We used to often see that when I was managing a yoga retreat center, that people who had gone through yoga teacher training had created such profound shifts over a period of 6-7 weeks, had changed so much internally, had learned so much about themselves, and also let go old parts of themselves that weren't serving them any longer. And for them to reintegrate into their old world, to move back with family, see their old friends who obviously hadn't changed. For them it had just been 6 weeks passing, to then gel with them again and mesh with that again was a whole interesting challenge in and of itself. So how can you, if you are in a phase like this, how can you stay true to yourself and true to what you have learned and the lessons that you have brought with yourself, while at the same time come into that old world and not be in some way an intruder or an aggressor who now suddenly expects everybody else to have changed and be different. If you, with the yoga teacher trainees, it always used to be they have given up drinking, they have given up all sorts of unhealthy drug habits, they have often become vegetarian while staying with us. You can't go home and suddenly expect everyone else to do the same. It would be kind of nice if you can inspire them, but you can't be attached to other people having your same views just because you show back up and you say so. So interesting challenge for you. How can you come bearing these gifts, these new insights, this new wisdom that you have collected, the new powers or resources that you carry within, and be humble and empathetic enough to still mesh with the people that you used to be surrounded by and share what you have learned, but without the attachment of them having to take it on exactly in the way that you envision? How can you serve them and support them without overwhelming them with the massive change that you have gone through? And maybe also if there's elements in your old surrounds that aren't serving you any longer, like people with very unhealthy habits, with some sort of toxic patterns within, reevaluate what kind of environment you want to go back into and whether those people are still actually serving you or whether some of them might be time to let go. With family that might not always be easy. Obviously, I'm not here to encourage you to say goodbye to your mom and your dad forever. This is going to be your choice, if anything. But if there are people that you have surrounded yourself with in the past who were to a degree serving you, who were on the same page with you for a long time, but now you have come back and you have changed, then reevaluate whether those people are actually friends that are going to support you to be your best, that are going to encourage you on your journey, and that are going to be helpful and inspiring for you in your new ways, bettering yourselves and upgrading your lifestyle. If not, it might be a healthy thing to do a bit of a spring clean emotionally and let go. You can still be polite, you can still, be involved with them on a more superficial level, but maybe not spend quite as much time. And as you are freeing up that time, make room for people who are on the same page about life as you are right now, who are supportive of healthy new habits, who are supportive of the person that you want to become and the kind of life that you want to live. The next part then, after having pretty much resurrected and come back into the old world, is then to actually bring that elixir with you, the sword you have seized, the gifts that you are bearing, and be able to share them with the people who are willing to receive them, without the attachment of everybody having to take it on just because you say so. So find your people, find the people who gel with you, and share those gifts with them. And in doing so, the circle closes and the hero's journey is complete. Now, it might be easy to think that you're just going on this one hero's journey and then everything is back to normal. The truth is that in life we are constantly experiencing hero's journeys of our own. So for example, the whole process of growing up from childhood through adolescence into adulthood is a whole hero's journey, and there is a level of initiation there in moving out, in going out by yourself, in finding your first job. Parenthood in itself is a whole hero's journey, even though if you're anything like me, you might not always quite feel like that much of a hero. Relationships can be hero's journeys. So by you stepping away and observing the phases that you are going through and stepping away to see what's going on in the bigger picture, you might be able to identify where in your life you are on a hero's journey right now. Maybe you are refusing a call. Maybe there have been glimpses of new ideas and new opportunities that so far you have been rejecting out of fear or out of a sense of not being good enough. Maybe it's time to listen. Maybe it's time to find that magical mentor who is going to support you on your journey and is going to give you just that little bit of upliftment that you need in order to step up and step into your power. Maybe you are fearing the big ordeal and you are hovering on the side of having to have a tricky conversation or like a tough breakup in a job, in a relationship or something. And maybe you are struggling with your return and you have changed and you have taken on a new lease on life and you don't quite gel with your old environment anymore. Have a look at the hero's journey and see not only where you are right now, but also what the required step up is, what the required next step is for you. So it might help you find your way a little bit more easier and notice what hero you are, because shouldn't we all step into our own hero and acknowledge ourselves for the big step ups we are making day to day in our life. Thank you very much for watching. If you're still with me, that's fantastic. If you like our content, hit the bell button to get notifications and obviously subscribe to our channel so that when we put out the next content, you will be the first to find out. If you've experienced a hero's journey of your own, by the way, I would love if you could drop me a comment in the comment section. It's always great to hear from our community and find out what you guys are taking away in terms of lessons from our videos. Thank you very much and see you soon.